Hello Monster fans, and welcome to another episode of the Monster Report. My name is Nick Adam Poling. Today, going solo today, have a special episode. I had the chance to see the legendary Godzilla film for the second time. Didn't really get the chance to get a reaction video out for the first time I wanted to watch it, because partly because it was still fresh in my mind. Of course, I thought the film was fantastic. I thought it was wonderful. If you saw my Facebook page, it raved about it. And but I did want to get the chance to get some of that out of the way and the excitement built about it, and take a couple of weeks, then see it for a second time and see if there were some things I missed. Of course there were. Anytime you see a film, you're going to have portions of it that you miss and portions of it you have questions about. Maybe you get those questions answered in the second viewing. Maybe you have more questions. And certainly a lot of those things happen when my wife and I got the chance to see it for a second time. First time, got the chance to see it in real 3D, IMAX. It was fantastic. It was going all out in Fort Wayne, Indiana to be able to see it on the big screen as large as life, and really enjoyed that. Then the second time, got to see it in 2D and see if there was some things that I missed. And there were definitely some things that about the 3D I missed, probably partly due to the fact that 3D throws some things out of focus for you, makes some things darker for you, and in 2D you kind of catch those things. It's like, oh, I missed that. Maybe there was rain in your eyes or things like that. Not that this film had a lot of the dust and debris that 3D does to you. Like, if I want to bring up, for instance, Pacific Rim. Saw it in 3D, saw it in 2D. Quite a different movie seeing it in one version than the other, and I'm sure I'll get some comments on that one. But as far as this film, what I want to say about the 3D aspect of it is that this 3D just plain worked. When I saw it, I expected certain things about 3D, where 3D tries to be in your face a lot, where 3D tries to be 3D, tries to just, throw things at you for the simple fact of the matter of saying, we're 3D, we're fantastic, we're great. But this film really didn't do that. I think that the 3D was subtle. Maybe some people feel a little gypped as a result of that, because they said, well, I came here to see a 3D movie, I want all of that. I don't necessarily want that, and I even have to tell some of my peers, my friends, my students at times that 3D has been around a long time. Creature from the Black Lagoon, 1950s, was in 3D, and so this technology has grown, but the basic idea of going to the movie theater and seeing something in 3D has been around a long time, a long, long time. So, some of the things I want to talk about with this film, what I like, what I didn't like. Of course, I'm going to be a little biased here because I thought the film was fantastic, so maybe some things out there you're watching might seem like I'm defending it. Well, it's a Godzilla film and I'm standing behind it, but there is one Godzilla film I will not defend, and you know which one that was, Mr. Roland Emmerich. But about this film, going into it, realizing, and by the way, spoiler alert, if you are up to this point and you have not seen the film, go out there, see the film. Don't look at this and say, I go into the film with all of this knowledge in mind. Like I wanted to do as much as possible, try to not watch all the media hype, all the trailers. Some of the trailers I watched, not all of them I did, but I wanted to make sure that I was hopefully spoiler free. I had some ideas of what might happen in the film, but I think in the end I was pleasantly pleased that some of those expectations were met and some of those expectations were exceeded. And so, looking at this film, spoiler alert, go no further if you haven't seen the film. So, for those of you who have already seen the film, you know what I'm talking about here when I talk about how the film opens with the great stock footage from the 1940s, 50s, when we're looking at nuclear tests in the Pacific. And we've seen this in other Godzilla films, this stock footage idea, but this one used kind of a combination of stock footage and modern footage made to look like it was shot in the 1940s, made to look like what they're doing out in the Pacific was something that was really real. And I think that it adds that element of realism to it when you have that kind of grainy looking film stock, and even the projector sound that's running, things like that. The music is fantastic, builds up the film. You have the text flying in with the names of the actors and actresses, Gareth Edwards, the director, executive producers, and all of that. And then there are parts of it that will be crossed out, kind of like, government cover-up conspiracy idea. You're hiding something. I love that. I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was a unique way in opening this film. And, and you got some glimpses of the Godzilla's dorsal fins, and you saw that what they were trying to do essentially, and that they were well aware that there was this monster out there in the Pacific. So how easily are they going to be able to cover this up as we go through this? It also had some mystery. That group called Monarch. Who founded them? What does that stand for? Something? Is it something we need to look into a little bit more, maybe in the next film? Because we are going to get some more Godzilla films since this was so successful. Maybe a prequel, or are we going to get some flashback scenes to what was happening out there with Monarch and some of their encounters with Godzilla? Because I'm sure it wasn't just, look, there's a dun 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 Godzilla. It wasn't like that. I'm sure a couple of times. I'm sure there were some incidents. Let's just say he is what he is. He is an animal. He is a monster. So, good boy. Good boy. Okay. Some of the things that, right from the start, after the open, and we get to meet some of our main characters, Bryan Cranston's character, Joe Brody, and we meet a young Ford Brody, his son, and we get to meet Cranston's wife, the actress Juliette Binoche. The thing about this character, the reason I don't remember her name is, even though I've seen it twice, is because her character isn't that well developed. When she dies so quickly in this film, it's really hard to relate to Cranston in some ways. I relate to him, and as a husband myself and as a father myself, I do relate to him. So they've already got me hooked into Cranston's character, but not everyone may relate in that same way. But why is it we care about this character? She was not on screen that long, so it was a little difficult for me to really connect with the reason why Joe was so brought down. I know it would be like, I don't know what it would be like if I lost my wife, and I know it would be very difficult if I was responsible for sending her in that place where she met her demise. And so I understand and relate with Cranston that way, but I didn't care about this character in a lot of ways because we really didn't develop her character that way. And I thought, either one of two things, maybe just chop that character right out, or develop her, give a little bit more screen time. And I wouldn't have minded a little bit longer film, because again, there's the name Godzilla. I could have been there for the next 3 hours. But don't make it, Peter Jackson's King Kong. Let's get into the monster action here. So I did relate to Cranston in that way, and I did feel his pain, and I understand why. They had to, as the story, put him in that position because of what happens later. He is so obsessed with what happens here at the Janjira nuclear power plant. That's why he's going back. He's looking into these conspiracies and what's going on. That's why he's got all the the newspaper articles on the wall. And you're saying, he doesn't get many visitors, just like he says in the film. So he is so obsessed with what's going on there because he has lost his wife and because he sent her down there. If he sent just some co-workers, he might react this way. He might be just someone who's really obsessed about their job, but in the meantime, he's leaving his family behind. And that's not very relatable to a character. When it comes down to it, family cuts to the core of a father and a husband and all of this. So we get the young character Ford's character arc, the young Ford to the old Ford. We get kind of a arc happening with Ford as he grows up, and he has a wife himself. He has a son of his own, and he is in some ways like his father, in other ways not. He dealt with the loss of his mother in a lot of ways by kind of just swallowing it whole and not really dealing with it. Whereas Cranston's character wants to do something about it. He can't let it go. He can't let this incident go because in a lot of ways for him it's unresolved. The death is unresolved for him. So he's looking for some closure. I love the fact that we get the father and son working together when they're walking around that desolate city outside of the Janjira. Probably was, again, maybe someone in the comments section can help me. What was the city also named Janjira? I'm not sure. But I love the shots of the city and as it was just destroyed. But the question I have, that city is in that quarantine zone, been cut off for 15 or so years. And I understand why there'd be dust and debris, but what I didn't understand is why there would be so much damage. Why there would be so many smashed windows, buildings that just look gutted and pulled apart. What happened? I mean, the power plant didn't explode, it collapsed. And so it would send dust and debris and everyone on their way out evacuating. I could see some devastation as a result of that. And when they're going through looking for discs and they're clearing dust and things off of desks, I do get that. I understand why. But the overwhelming destruction, like a monster had been through there. But it hadn't. A monster hadn't been through this city. And there wasn't a nuclear explosion, and it wouldn't look like that either. But in 15 years, what happens to a city? Dust and debris get it, and everywhere you see a lot of that happening, and you see just wind and rain that gets into places, but it doesn't break down buildings in 15 years in that same way. So someone in the comment section may talk about that. Maybe it's as simple as it's Japan and they're hit by earthquakes very often. Maybe that's what it is, and an unmaintenanced, abandoned building like that probably would have some collapsing structures if it were earthquake. Let's get away from that. Like the shots of that city, they're going through their relics of their past. He's digging through old technology, old computers, and zip disks of all things. Something that was that I used in college, in the early 2000s and late 90s in high school. These zip disks, they were really cool technology at the time, and we're looking at them now saying, wow, that's all you needed as far as data. It was maybe 128 meg or so, and that seemed like so much at the time. And then they made up to 500 so meg disks, and he's leafing through them and finding them, and I'm like, okay, great. Do you have a zip disk drive hanging out? Apparently somebody in the military and that aircraft carrier did later in the film. And so unmistakably, they got that right as far as the time period. He wasn't going to leaf through things and find flash drives or portable hard drives, most likely. Now, Joe's character dies quite early. Bryan Cranston's character, Joe dies early. Bryan Cranston plays him, and you're saying to yourself, why did they do that? Bryan Cranston, such a big name actor. His name's, on every advertisement. His face is on every trailer. His voice is in about every trailer. And you're saying, and why in the world did they kill him off so early and we're left with the son? Well, I understand what they were trying to do here. For him, after he's exposed what's happened here to this nuclear power plant in the city and what happened to his wife, and it wasn't a natural disaster, and the Muto gets away, pretty much there's no reason to go back to Janjira at this point. His character arc is over. There's not much more that we can do with this character. He can play a role, but it might be standing on the deck of the aircraft carrier watching with Ken Watanabe, Dr. Serizawa's character, Dr. Serizawa. He'd be just standing there looking on at the destruction and all things. But what else does he have to offer at this point? Not much. So that's why we got to move on from that character to the chance to see Ford and what he has to do. And I heard a lot of criticism about this. He really didn't have much of a time to grieve for his father or mourn for the death of his father. In a lot of ways, I can understand the argument that, if that were my father, I'd be a mess. I'd be completely a mess. I love my father, and to have him just taken out of this world that quickly, it'd take me a while to recover from that. But the fact is, he's at the moment, he's not in the mode, because he's military, because he's a young man. He is in the mode of saving his family and protecting his family. Yes, his father was important to him, but he's gotta, as a military officer, get on the game. Don't let this let him lose control of the situation. He can grieve later. He's going to get the chance to grieve later, of course. But right now, he's got something really vastly important to do, which is get home to his family, make sure they're protected, make sure they're safe, even communicate with them, even call them up and say, I'm safe, I'm trying to be on my way home. Maybe you could evacuate, but that opportunity just kept missing him. And so I could see, how I would, in place of this character, react to something like that. And when he's trying to get home and everything's stopping him on the way. But in every situation, again, being military, being surrounded by all these military officials, he is in his element, in the zone. He's ready to fight. He's ready to do what needs to be done. And that's what I really loved about this film, is that the military is portrayed with some competence, with some know-how, with not this clashing one another and being at odds with one another, trying to outman, trying to over-dominate someone else, in that film sort of military way where someone's always, well, I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. And we see that all the time, and it's so predictable. And in this one, there was some of that. It's not like there was none. But in this one, you saw a military that was competent, who wanted to get the job done, who was willing to risk their lives in order to get the mission accomplished, because we're dealing with human lives here, we're dealing with American soil, and so they've got to do what they've got to do, and they do it, and they go in there with the know-how, without question even. To see what they need to do, and following the leader. The leader tells us this is what we need to do, and there's a mission, there's a plan, a goal, and we've got to reach that. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the end of the film. I'm kind of going chronologically with my notes that I have here, so forgive me. So we have Ken Watanabe's character, Dr. Serizawa. One thing about this character, I felt like in the script writing process of this, they said his name a few too many times. Now I understand this. If you hadn't seen the original Godzilla, you might need to hear that name a few times before it really sinks in. And so when I'm talking to people who have seen this film once or twice, and I'm like, well, what'd you think of Serizawa? And they're saying, who? Well, the primary Japanese character in there. It wasn't the only Japanese character in there, but the primary one. The one they always say his name. In fact, at one point, they're trying to get his attention, and he's just kind of looking on and just taking in what had happened when the Muto got away. And they say his name like 4 times. Dr. Serizawa. It's like, at some point, don't you switch to Dr. Serizawa, to Doctor. Doctor, can you please pay attention to me? And so, I understand why they had to say his name several times. But here's the Godzilla geek in me. His name is Dr. Serizawa, paying homage to the Dr. Serizawa from the original 1954 Godzilla, the scientist who came up with the technology, the oxygen destroyer that killed Godzilla ultimately. And I understand that, doing the throwback with the name, this isn't the same actor. This is not the same character. This is not the same story either. And because this is a scientist, sure. And this is someone who is in charge. Yeah, I get that. But the original Dr. Serizawa was someone who wanted to be alone with his work. He didn't want his work to be used in the wrong ways as a weapon. He didn't want it to kill Godzilla. And all of this is happening with that character. This character, though, has the know-how and does sympathize with Godzilla. and he is in a lot of ways trying to back the military off from looking at Godzilla as a threat to more like, again, that line you heard in the trailers, let them fight. And so when it comes down to it, this character, if anyone, it needs to be to parallel from the original Godzilla. And Godzilla geeks, you can get on the forum here and on the comments here and maybe even argue with me. Dr. Yamane. Dr. Yamane in the original Godzilla was one, again, sympathized with Godzilla, thought he needed to be studied, we need to back off from him and let him be what he is. There's not much we can do about the fact that he's here and he's destroying things. We created him, we're somewhat responsible for our actions, and the fact that he is destroying our cities is kind of a payback, vengeance for our irresponsibility. You know, that can get kind of political and all that, but that was Dr. Yamane's character. So if you were to name him something, maybe that might fit a little bit better with this character, because again, he is not trying to kill Godzilla, and he doesn't have technology to kill Godzilla either. And so it's not like he has some unstoppable force, you know, at the palm of his hands that he's debating within his heart and within his mind. Should I use this? Can I use this? What will happen to me? Am I willing to lay down my life for that? For the fact that my technology is that dangerous? It didn't seem like that kind of a character. Whereas Yamane was more of just someone who does what he does. He spouts off exposition, lets us know exactly who we're dealing with, what we're dealing with, from a scientific standpoint. So, enough on Dr. Serizawa, but I did appreciate the actor Ken Watanabe and how he delivered the lines and how he held a lot of gravity for that character. He does have that from the other films you've seen him in, and I just think his presence really just worked for me. I like the fact that he called Godzilla Gojira and the Americans called him Godzilla, which again goes back to the fact that both names are correct. We as Americans call him Godzilla. They as Japanese call him Gojira. That's his name in Japan. And so the name that was given to us internationally is Godzilla. And so it's not like one is right and one is wrong. It's right for you if you're living in Japan and that's the language you speak, and that is what his name is. It's not wrong for me to call him Gojira either, but it's just, again, how do we identify with this character? And I appreciated that now an American audience can hear that name spoken and they can question it, and they can go back to that original 1954 film, watch it, and see what a masterpiece it is, and see what kind of a creature we're looking at here. Not just a B-movie monster flick that's good for popcorn entertainment, though it's good for that too. Ford seems lifeless and emotional. We kind of talked about that. Again, he's compartmentalizing things because he's military. The Muto design, I've heard it's too much like the Cloverfield monster. The only thing I got to say about this is go back and watch the Cloverfield movie. Really watch it. How much you actually see that monster in there, which is very little. It's not quite the same. There are similarities, sure. I see a ton more differences, though, in the way it moves, and I do like the way that the Muto design, and we're saying the Muto design, there are two different designs here. They're somewhat distinctly different, and there was a lot of creature designs from the original Godzilla. I saw a little bit of, like, Gigan even in the design with the eyes, and I saw some other creatures that even the Kamacuras from the tarantula, Spiga or Spiga from the Komonga, as they say in Japan, the character from Son of Godzilla, the spider. And I even saw some of that in there. So Gigan and just a lot of classic monsters and somewhat of a new look for a new monster. I wasn't at all disappointed with the fact that we get a new monster in this. We don't always have to see Godzilla fight King Ghidorah or Megalon or Rodan or someone like that. But I even saw some Rodan in the Muto. This one flies. So, being able to see that. I thought the design was really good in the way it moves. In a lot of ways, what's scary to us is not just in the creature design and how menacing they look. Godzilla is scary because he's so menacing looking. The Muto I thought was very scary looking because of the fact that it moved in an unnatural, otherworldly sort of way. Kind of the reason why we don't like to see insects, where some people who are creeped out by spiders, who are creeped out by snakes or even rodents, not in a lot of ways of how dangerous they are, but how they move. It's just something about the fact that they're scurrying, or they have 8 legs, or just something about the way they moved. Snakes, something unnatural about it, and that agility that really kind of sends the chills down the spines. And that's what I kind of liked about this design. It's like, what can it do next? It's got that EMP power. It's obviously enormous. It's obviously a pretty good match for Godzilla, and there are 2 of them. So he's got his hands full quite a bit throughout this film. I did again like the fact that the camaraderie of the military, they're being able to risk their lives to accomplish the mission. When the nuke is on the boat, the Muto's after the boat. At this point, Ford's character, he can't do anything about the nuke. He can't shut it down because the cover to it is basically jammed, so they can't get to the timer. And so that's why his character stuck around a little longer to make sure that the eggs for the Muto were destroyed. And yeah, you could have had any military personnel do that, but as far as a movie, I want to see him be the hero somehow. And this is a way that they were able to do that. And I didn't think it was too contrived, too pretentious in order to make his character do that. Because honestly, that would happen if this character was faced with that dilemma. He can't get to the timer of the nuke. Nothing I can do about it, so I may as well be useful in some way. Okay, so I did like that. He was on his game. He was able to use his training the right way to do the right job. I found it interesting why he had to do it alone. He could have had somebody, can you stick around and help me out? Do we need that many guys carrying the nuke? Maybe they did. But they were able to they were willing to risk their lives on that boat. There's not much you can do with that monster when he's coming at you, but you got some guns. Shoot him. Open fire. It's better than just doing nothing and sitting here and waiting to be eaten, waiting to be killed. So you may as well do something, even up to the point when Ford says he's on the boat and he's moving away. The Muto's face to face with him, and he pulls out his little 9mm or whatever, and what's he going to do? That's a pea shooter to this creature. But do something. Don't just wait there. Don't just wink to the camera, because you're not useful for anything at that point. So at least be useful. And I thought, how it ended with Godzilla saving the day. Fantastic. We'll get to that in a second. Is Godzilla too fat? The only thing I got to say about that, I thought he looked very bulky, menacing. Even the original Godzilla had a lot of bulk to the costume, because they had to build it up in order to fit a human being inside of the suit. Now, this is not a suit, of course, in the new Godzilla, the classic ones, and even up to 2004's Godzilla Final Wars, still had a man in a suit. So that's why the suits look like they have large thighs and all of that. And this suit, or this design, quite like a bear kind of design, very menacing, very large. And I also have to say, is he a little overweight? Well, he feeds off of nuclear energy, and what were they trying to do in the Pacific but kill him by constantly bombarding him with nuclear weapons? So drop bomb after bomb after bomb on him. Sure, he's a little engorged, and did you ever see him crave a nuclear weapon in this movie? He didn't. He's pretty full, even since the 1940s or 50s when we stopped trying to kill him. He just probably laid dormant for a while. So Mutos, of course, were after as many nuclear weapons, nuclear material as they could. Godzilla here, maybe in the next film, he might be a little hungry for some nuclear material. Maybe we'll see an attack like in the 1985 Godzilla, looking for some nuclear power plant goodies out there. But I also thought that he was very animalistic in this film, especially in that scene with the bridge, in that he's just trying to get through. He might be smashing through this bridge where there are innocent people. Well, again, you can't sit there and just do nothing, so that's why they open fire on him, and the way he reacts, it's unpredictable. not sure what he's going to do. He's grabbing onto the bridge. He's, rushing through, trying to get out of the way of things. He's obviously reacting to it. It's not like, again, the military can do anything because he's just so enormous and his skin's so thick, and so he's so indestructible. Not completely in this film, but he's just trying to get away from that, like any animal would do. And so even though he's the good guy, he is still yet what he is. He's an animal and unpredictable. Not enough Godzilla in this film? Yeah, there wasn't enough Godzilla in this film. But I say that about every Godzilla film. Just about every monster movie. I say we didn't see enough of the monster. That's right, you don't. I don't think there could be a monster film with... That was just right. That was just enough monster to satisfy the craving I have for monster film action. And I say that somewhat sarcastically, and I say that because it's just simply true. And I hear a lot of people go back to Jaws. Yeah, you didn't see the shark that much. The Alien film, you didn't see the alien for just a few, handful of minutes at a time. And you go back to the original Godzilla's films, the whole film franchise. Yeah, there's a lot of human interaction. I thought this really felt like enough. I didn't feel like it needed more. Sure, they could have used more. It could have been over the top as well. I felt like they gave us just a good amount of taste to leave us wanting more, which is the mark of a good film in my opinion, is to leave you wanting more, even adding some mystery somewhat. It's like, where does this character come from? Where does this organization come from? And this film did that for me. It satisfied that, and it leaves me craving more. And so we're going to see if we're going to get more with a sequel, perhaps a trilogy, perhaps some prequels. We'll see. Sure, not enough Godzilla. Sure, they did a lot of cutaways, and some people didn't like that. I didn't mind it, showing the aftermath, but not the attack of Godzilla or the Mutos on Las Vegas or any city that was out there. And you'd like to see that actually happening. Again, I think that adds some mystery. I think in a lot of ways what happens in your mind is a lot more scary, a lot more frightening than what anyone can show on screen. But film is still a visual medium, so show something. And I think we still got plenty of the monster action, and they got the chance to really show off what they could do with visual effects in this film. And especially like the planes falling from the skies, and some of the pilots ejecting, some of them not, and some of them just crashing straight into buildings. That's frightening in a lot of ways. It's saying this creature is so efficient at destroying these planes and taking them right out of the air, picking them off one by one, that this is happening, and you're not seeing it because it's past the cloud cover and all of that. And it's like, he's coming, and he's coming after me. So I'm next, and so that really adds that tension, I thought. And so again, mark of a good horror film, sci-fi film, action film, just overall good film. And I thought, that those kinds of aftermath scenes, or even precursor to destruction scenes, really paint a really good picture, a really well-rounded film. So yet some of the technical things. Did they give enough time for Ford to get away from the nuke? What they call minimum safe distance. You need so many minutes, so much ground cover, so much distance between you and the explosion, because we don't think we quite understand how big nuclear weapons, put out as far as explosion is concerned, and as far as the fallout's concerned. They're enormous. And they've only been getting bigger and bigger since Hiroshima, of course. And they even mentioned in this film that this bomb will make what we dropped on Hiroshima look like a firecracker. Something about the nuke on the train, too. I heard some criticism. Why did we use a train? What was the point in that? Was it just so we can have that scene with the Muto, which I thought was a great scene? But I did hear it. I did hear why. The Muto has an EMP ability, and so electromagnetic pulse sets that off and planes just fall from the sky. So why couldn't we airlift it? That was the reason. Sure, after the train pretty much failed, because the Muto went right after it, there was a nuke left over, and you got to airlift it. So they airlifted it, and so that's, what else are you going to do? You've got to do something. It's just wreckage at this point. And so either find another one or find another way for it to get to the shore. And they found a way, and so you've got that problem, of the EMP to deal with, which I thought was effective for a creature. It's not just the fact that he's big, he's menacing, both of them, but they have this extra power. Godzilla has his atomic breath. Might give him an edge up. Does give him an edge up. But what can we give the Mutos beyond just the fact that they're large and they are agile and strong? Let's see. I do appreciate the fact that Godzilla is the hero in this film. He's still a monster though, still an animal like we've talked about. I'm hopeful for a great sequel and continuing with this idea of Godzilla being the good guy, fighting other monsters, being kind of our savior, but not in the way that old cartoon did, where they can call Godzilla and he comes and he rescues everyone on the bridge, or he does this or that, and he's kind of there, kind of like a bellhop, just to be there at your beck and call. Not like that. He's a useful tool, but he's also a very dangerous one. Think of him as a blade that you cut wood with. A very dangerous tool, but a very highly effective and highly fine-tuned one. It's a good, useful tool, I should say. And so Godzilla is useful in those pinches where you can't do anything about it. The military is pretty much not going to be able to contain another monster. Send another monster after him. And so I'm hopeful for it. I'm also hopeful that they're not going to come up with a pretentious, just predictable kind of title for the next film. Don't call it Godzilla Rising or Dawn of Godzilla or Revenge of Godzilla or anything like that. Though you can call it Return of Godzilla. I'd be fine with that. You can go ahead and call it. That's one of my favorite of the classic Godzilla series. Not necessarily classic, it's the Godzilla 85, the alternate title for it. Don't call it Godzilla Into Darkness or anything silly like that, but come up with a great title. Come up with one that's original and just really works for what it's going to do. And it'd be fine if it were a Godzilla versus, because that is the formula that has worked. It worked for Godzilla for about 30 films now, and so go ahead and do that. So that's all I have. I appreciate anyone watching on YouTube. Just go ahead and leave some comments, subscribe, tell people about what's happening here on the Monster Report. I also like to show you guys as we're cutting out here is this video that was made for the Godzilla Alert. The Godzilla Alert was not a contest, but just the chance for you to show what it would look like for Godzilla to visit your hometown. So here it is. Enjoy, and we'll be right back. And so there it is, Godzilla visiting my hometown of Union City, Indiana. Not sure how much we would last, how long we would last if he visited, but you know, it was a fun video, little 2-minute video to put together with some of my students. You saw their names on the credits. Appreciate you guys helping me out. It was one of those things when I saw the footage of the Fresno, California, where he would visit that, and saw reactions, and I said, I think we could do something like this. Maybe we could even do a little bit better, maybe not. I just said, let's shoot for a day, let's edit for a day, and I'll put the video out there. I'll spend some time editing at home, and I thought it turned out better than originally I thought it was going to be, you know, keying out the sky, removing it like a green screen, and seeing what kind of footage in the trailer you can put Godzilla, you know, behind our water tower, behind our wind tower, wind turbine that we have here in town, in our little historic downtown area, and something that looks like the 1800s. So again, how long would we last? Not long. But the chance to being able to put this video on YouTube and getting something like, you know, 2,000 views on it is just fantastic, especially for our little hometown of Union City. But you know, I was just very pleased with it. It wasn't perfect. It was just something that, again, whatever it turned out looking like, I was going to be happy with, and so I thought it was one of the better videos. I'm kind of proud of it, but I can't take all the credit for it. Had a lot of good training in editing, had a lot of good help in shooting with that video, so I appreciate all those who helped out with it. And I appreciate you who watched, commented, and are continuing to support the Monster Report, being here on the air on KISS TV in Union City, Indiana, and on YouTube, and out there on the World Wide Web. So continue to watch, subscribe, comment, like, all of those good things. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, we're all out there, and we will catch you on our next episode of the Monster Report. This has been Nick Adam Poling. We'll see you next time.